The one thing that makes AEW really different from WWE is the fact that they have this forbidden door. And, at this point, it's a marketing thing too. Obviously, they're taking advantage of it from a business perspective, which you should expect. But we do know that there's going to be a debut next week on Dynamite, and I want to talk about that. Plus, we got some major stuff for Forbidden Door and in Top Impact Wrestling star leaving, possibly to AEW or WWE. But yes, guys, we're talking about David Finlay versus Hangman Page. It is going to be the debut match next week on AEW Dynamite, and AEW is obviously trying to follow up with some very big momentum after this past week in LA. Now, as you guys know, if you watch me on the Ango Show live on twitch.tv/AngoTV, I talk about this very, very, very highly. The Forbidden Door thing is like, my number one concern was whether or not they can build storylines, and I think a lot of people are paying attention to that. Hey, can they build a storyline for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which is not a very easy task considering that it's a short period of time. But at the end of the day, we're not asking for like this crazy storyline, but we just need to have some, something to get us excited for the pay-per-view. It just can't be like a last-minute decision to throw matches on there. Now, I don't expect David Finlay to actually beat Hangman Page, and I think that's really important to mention right off the rip. But I think this is going to obviously set something up for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which obviously intrigues me for a variety of reasons, and I am going to get to that in just a second. But it's really important to understand what match they could be setting up for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, and that kind of leads us to Okada. Actually, I'm excited about this because according to our good friends at the Wrestling Observer newsletter, on the Wrestling Observer radio, it was basically brought to everybody's attention that there is a potential lineup that's been listed for the show, and Dave Meltzer had actually seen it. And obviously, Dave Meltzer and AEW, they're cool as hell. So the idea is Punk versus Tanahashi will take place for the AEW World Championship, Adam Page versus Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and then basically AEW will not announce the second match until after Dominion because Okada defends the title against Jay White. So if you guys were expecting Jay White to take the belt off of Okada, that doesn't seem to be very realistic. Now, with that being said, the IWGP title match won't be announced until after St. Louis. So St. Louis, the show in St. Louis is the 15th. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing with David Finlay and Hangman Page, because David Finlay is going to go into AEW. More than likely he'll lose, or maybe a DQ or whatever it may be. But the idea that we're going to see NJPW talent on AEW television in the build-up for AEW New Japan Forbidden Door, I think that's actually a really good way of handling it, because you may not be able to give us concrete long-term storylines, but even the idea of having Tanahashi just show up, right, and just basically go on the entrance ramp and look at Punk, say what you want about two of the guys, but I think that's a wonderful way just to at least get people to think about Forbidden Door versus, here's some match graphics or something like that. So I'm all about this. I give AEW a lot of props because, again, I do think the Forbidden Door thing does make them different than WWE. I think if WWE was doing this right now, and I'm not trying to be like overly critical of WWE here because I've said this so many freaking times on the channel, but I feel like if WWE were in the position as AEW was with New Japan, I don't know if we would all have trust within AEW within WWE to book the matches the right way. And I think to a certain extent, we don't know fully how much we can trust AEW or New Japan, but their relationship has been a lot better in recent months. So I feel like we can trust AEW and New Japan will put out a good product so the fans win. And I feel like WWE, on the other hand, would probably put out a product that would be more beneficial to their business. And I think as a business person, I can understand that train of thought, right? But as a wrestling fan, I wouldn't want all WWE guys to go over NJPW guys. I would want a mixture of both, and I would really, really want there to be an emphasis on both companies. And I think we're going to get that with AEW and New Japan. I don't think we have to really be concerned about whether or not AEW and New Japan are going to put on a good show. I think WWE, on the other hand, would be a concern. So nonetheless, David Finlay is set to debut on Dynamite next week, which is awesome. And then, of course, don't forget, Okada and Page could very well be the match for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. I wonder if we'll see AEW talent at the Dominion show. maybe that could be a way to set it up. I don't know if there are plans in this company to show up at these NJPW shows, but NJPW is touring America. I don't know exactly how it's doing business-wise for them, but there is an opportunity without having to travel. I think the real thing that I want to know what's next is what's going to happen with Bryan Danielson. All right, guys, now for our final news story of today's video, I want to talk about a top Impact Wrestling star who is leaving the company because it appears that W. Morrissey, aka Big Cass, is on his way out. In fact, this was reported by PW Insider, who said that W. Morrissey, aka the former Big Cass in WWE, is now no longer with Impact Wrestling as he has departed the promotion. Morrissey joined the promotion in April 2021. Obviously, everybody saw this as a very big deal because he redeemed himself. This was really, really massive for him. And of course, there was, all of his trouble back in WWE when he was released in 2018. Now, keep in mind, Morrissey did make his AEW debut just a few weeks ago against Wardlow. He lost. But Andrew Zarian did mention on his Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast that people in WWE were impressed by what they saw. In fact, we actually covered this. We talked about it in a video. So just kind of keep that in mind when it comes to W. Morrissey. There is a very good chance that he can go back to WWE. There is a good chance that he can go to AEW. And honestly, I think both companies are good at that point. I really don't see an issue. I really don't see an issue with this whatsoever. So I am very intrigued to see how this goes. I don't know what to expect necessarily, but what I would say is that if AEW can have W. Morrissey show up and instantly be a big deal, it's a good idea. If WWE can put W. Morrissey on TV and make him instantly a big deal, it's a great idea. What I'm not really interested in is W. Morrissey leaving Impact just to go to AEW and just be another big guy, just another wrestler on the roster. In fact, I will say the same thing about WWE. If W. Morrissey just goes in there just as another big guy, just as another guy who's there to make other people look good, I'm good on that. I don't want to see that. I'm not interested. He showed us that he can be a singles guy without Enzo Amore, and he can do it on TV. I understand that Impact is not as big as everybody else, but I think it makes a lot of sense for him to show up in one of these companies and be treated as a big deal. I'm not saying he's got to be world champion. I'm not saying he's got to be a mid-card champion, but he cannot sit here and just linger around on TV once in a while. He's got to be consistently used, build momentum, and, if you want to shock some people, give him Money in the Bank or give him the TNT Championship. But we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think.